afternoon. This is Jacob here with another episode of the Let's Get to Business podcast. And so today I'm going to talk about, I'm actually going to, record a few episodes as a podcast here. So if you see me looking the same from one to the next, that's the reason why. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about something called the prerequisite to change. Now, I think there's so many times in life if we want an organization to move, we want to cast a vision for the future, or we see something that needs to be changed or improved or whatever. And in order to do that, there is a prerequisite. There is something that we first need to do in order for that to happen. And the problem is that we as human beings, we tend to get comfortable where we are. We tend to have a comfort zone. And we need to first get people to realize that that comfort zone is bad. Or we need to first get people to realize that where we are is not good enough. And in order to go to the next level, we got to first sell the fact that here is not good enough. And they did a session a couple years ago in the Global Leadership Summit where they talked about from here to there. And we first have to help people to realize that where we are is not good enough, or where we are needs some improvement, or whatever. We need to first sell people on that idea in order to go from here to there. If we try to sell a future vision, but the current vision is good enough to most people, we're going to have a very hard time selling the change. So let's start off with in Matthew 5, verse 3, it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." That is in Matthew 5, verse 3. Now, what is poor in spirit? Now, why do I use this? Poor in spirit, it means that if you read through the whole Beatitudes, we first have to realize where we are. We first realize that we don't have what it takes. We're not where we need to be. And not to be preaching here or anything, but in order to bring Jesus into heart, we first have to realize that we need Him. We first need to realize there's a lack before we can fill up the need. We first have to see the lack before we can fulfill the lack, or we can fill it. And I think that's a very key, important difference. And even from a business standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, if a customer does not know that they need it, you have to first help them to see the lack. Now, some people, they see the lack. Their roof is leaking. Now, I do roofing, so if they see a roof leaking, it is very easy for them to know they lack a roof that is leaking. They lack a roof that is dry. That's very easy to perceive. But if you're selling something like a little bit more abstract, maybe like software or system, or maybe coaching or wherever it may be, I think it's a little bit more different. We have to first help people we had to first explain to them or help them see the lack before we can sell the fulfillment of that lack. And Matthew 5 verse 3 says, starts on that. It's blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Why is theirs the kingdom of heaven? Because they cannot realize the kingdom of heaven until they first realize how poor they are in spirit. Until they realize that they need it, they can't get it. And I think that's very important. In John 4, it says, "God is the Spirit, and they that come to Him must come to in spirit and in truth." Now, why do I use this? Not only, in order for us to change, we first have to recognize where we are. We first have to be honest about my current position. And if there's things happening in my life right now, I first have to be real about it. It is the prerequisite to change. In my own life, some of my greatest difficulties come from myself, because I refuse to recognize the fact that there was a problem. Until I recognize there's a problem, I cannot start solving that problem. And this is it is one of the simplest things ever, but we first have to recognize it in order to change it. And people want to bottle things up, and they go through a traumatic experience. They tend to bottle things up and push it down. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert on this, but without being honest about it, it's very difficult to let go of that hurt, to heal from that. And I think that in business, let's say we got in on a bad deal, and we start going down this road. We got some momentum, and there's a tendency to just keep spending, throwing more money at the problem, instead of really facing the fact that it's a failure. And there's actually a whole book that was written that's just on this, where they talked about it is hard for people to let go after they start going a certain direction. So I think we have to sometimes let things go. We first have to recognize it's a problem so that we can let go. So that's what I call the prerequisite to change. We must first realize where we are and what we are before we can change. And I think that's very important to realize. So with that, hope you guys are having an absolutely amazing day. Thanks for listening. We'll talk with you next time.